Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachak Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I have a few articles here from Zero Hedge as things are continuing to, transpire. Once again, you miss a day, you miss a lot. So here, as in recent days, there's been talks about this possible possible talks of peace, ceasefire, peace treaty, whatever you want to call it, for this Iran war, which ultimately, we're not in a time of peace, right? So the scriptures say that, there is a time of peace and there's a time of war. And right now, the Lord's agenda for this place is not peace. So it says here, Iran rejects U.S. proposed ceasefire, counters with 5 conditions, prepared to escalate in Bab al-Mandab Strait. And so I'm going to read what those 5 conditions are. But basically, Iran is saying, listen, you're not dictating under what terms and conditions that we have peace, because we have control over the strait. You need the strait open. So you're not going to come to us and tell us, okay, these are your no. The war stops when we want it to stop. And when we want it to stop is when our stipulations are met. So it says here in the summary, Iran does not accept ceasefire, issues 5 conditions, says U.S. talks are, well, it's missing the R, but are illogical. The statement says that talks are not viable in current conditions, while you have oil rising as well. You also have 3,000 elite Army airborne soldiers and Marines still en route after Trump said Monday that Iran has been destroyed militarily. And you can already see from how they're moving that, this isn't something that they're sincere about. That is the West, the U.S. and Israel and so on. That's not something they're actually sincere about doing. As I always say, look at their actions. Look at their actions. Listen to what they say, but look at what they do, because that tells you where their mind is. Words don't always tell you necessarily where somebody's mind is or what their intentions are. You have to look at what they actually do. Okay, that is where it is. So speaking on which, before we continue on this, I do have a post here, which let me also pull up this one here. It's the same thing, but from a different source. Okay. So from global surveillance, it says here, breaking, Netanyahu orders 48-hour blitz on Iran's arms industry as Trump peace talks loom. So if they were all on board with this, right, you would think that to make it at least to a point where the opposing side would even want to take your side seriously, if you truly did want a peace, a peace agreement or peace talks, you would think that you would, in act of good favor or whatnot, try to reduce as much tension between the two sides as possible. But how do you think they would react when you are saying one thing, which is you want peace talks and you're getting ready for it? But in the meanwhile, while you're doing that, you're still bombing, right? You're still sending, your attacks against them. And now you have this where it says Netanyahu has ordered the military to intensify strikes as much as possible, aimed at destroying Iran's arms industry over the next 48 hours. And that can change a whole lot. Okay, that can change a whole lot. Amid concerns that Trump could announce peace talks at any moment. What he's trying to do is like 2 people fighting, and then, they're trying to come to some, they seem like they're trying to come to some agreement. And then one who's on the let's say one of them who's a part of the fight, his homeboy comes and tries to sneak one last punch in before the fight ends. right? That's what they're trying to do here, and they're not. You can see right through it. Anybody who has the eyes to see can see right through it. This is basically the same kind of post. It says here, breaking: Israel is concerned that Trump may stop the war suddenly. Which listen, you're not, once again, dealing with some babies when you deal with Iran. These are actual people with brains. So, and they're fighting because they know that if they give up, whatever leverage they have now, that they're cooked. Okay, so they're out here fighting to survive, and they're not gonna be out here just whatever it is you throw at us, we're gonna take. No, especially now when they've been able to grab, they've got a taste of what it's like to be able to inflict damage on different economies by the control over that strait that they have. In past times, they've threatened to close it, they've threatened to do these things, but now they're actually doing it, and they're seeing how much damage they can cause. How desperate can they make these nations, right? How this, how that, and so they know what leverage that comes with. And that's why when we go back after reading this to their one of their five stipulations, they included one of them in there, which I'll read as the fifth one. So Netanyahu has instructed the IDF to, quote, well, all caps, wipe out Iran's arms industry within 48 hours. So do you think that that's a good idea? If you, from that perspective, and this is according to the New York Times, you try to wipe out all their arms industry, you intensify bombing, what do you think they're going to do in retaliation? You think they're going to say, oh yeah, no, you just gave us the worst bombing of our life, but we're gonna go through and have peace with your ally? Does that make sense? Is that something a sensible person would do? So on top of that, you also have here, it says 3,000 elite army airborne soldiers and Marines are still en route after Trump said Monday that Iran has been totally destroyed militarily. Now, once again, it takes time to get these troops over there. And so, when they, once again, you've seen, they didn't do this once, right? They didn't do this once where they did the whole using deception. And I mean, afterwards, Trump came out and said it openly. He said, yeah, we planned this months ahead. And we said that basically as a diversion tactic so that we can attack them and try to have the element of surprise. So it should be in the back of your mind that, maybe they're trying to do the same thing now, right? Anyway, Iran is tightening control of Hormuz, demanding detailed ship data and in some cases large fees for passage. Iran continues to say it is ready for long war, monitors U.S. troop movements. Our parliament speaker says, do not test our resolve to defend our land. So they seem okay, ready. So I'm going to read this here. These are their 5 conditions that they have for ending the war, which that's the thing that, well, some people are not privy to, which is this isn't a war that was started by men to be ended by men. This is a war that was started by the Heavenly Father because he has control, right? Proverbs 21:1. He controls the actions and the thoughts of everybody, really. So this is a war the Lord has determined to happen. And the scriptures tell us that the word of the Lord will not come back void, but it will accomplish that which he has sent it to. So if it is the Lord's word that there will be war between these very same exact nations, then it doesn't matter what you do and how many times you do it or you try to do it, the inevitable will end up happening, which is what? War. A war so violent and deadly that it goes nuclear. So what are the 5 conditions here? 1, to establish a complete halt to aggression and assassinations by the enemy. Now, do you think that Israel is going to be down with that? Of course not. Do you think the elites behind the scenes that are pulling the strings are going to be okay with that? Of course not. How did they achieve their new world order if now you're in the way? And this is only a part. All right, this is only one factor in their plans. Their whole plans are not contingent upon just this. The establishment of concrete mechanisms to ensure that the war is not reimposed on the Islamic Republic. Well, according to that letter, right, Albert Pike's letter, the war is meant to be between the Islamic Republic and the political Zionism. So that's not something that they're not going to plan this for hundreds of years, centuries. Come down to the point where it's within their grasp. Notice how they have Agenda 2030, and look how close we are to it. But it's within their grasp, and then they say, oh, because of some energy crisis and pain that's felt around the world, which they wanted that. Now we're just gonna throw away our hundreds of years old plans and agenda. It doesn't work that way. They couldn't even if they wanted to. Three, guaranteed and clearly defined payment of war damages and reparations. Now look at a guy like Trump. And what he's trying to do is he is trying to make it seem like you won even though you lost or you're losing. And you can see that when you're not doing the things you're saying you're doing. When you're saying that, here we go, right? I read this, where was it? Was it here? Or was it here? It was in one of these. I think maybe it was even somewhere above here. Yeah. So the second point here in the summary, right? Trump said that Iran has been destroyed militarily. Now ask yourself, if they've been destroyed militarily, why do you need to have peace talks? Why don't you just go and take the strait? Take control over it. Why don't you? Because who's going to stop you? Not their military. Remember, their military has been destroyed. Right? What's going on here? So, it just doesn't add up, does it? So do you think that somebody like him, with the way he loves his image, is going to say, yeah, we went up in there, we bombed them, it didn't work too well, and these are their demands, because the world knows what Iran's demands are. So if they're saying these are the only, unless they go and revise them and say, okay, fine, we're willing to, settle for this, that, and the third. But if they're staunchly on this, the world is going to know whether you acquiesce to them or whether you don't do that. And if you go and, give them what they desired and then turn around and say, we won the war, the world is going to look at you like, how? You went and made a big, big blunder. But don't worry, they have many means of distractions, the conclusion of the war across all fronts and for all resistance groups involved throughout the region. That's one of Iran's conditions. And the last one here is international recognition and guarantees regarding Iran's sovereign right to exercise authority over the Strait of Hormuz. See that? This is why they included that in there, because they see how much can you actually gain when you actually enforce this blockade of that strait versus just threatening to. You see, so there's a lot. This is fluid. Okay, this is fluid, but there's a lot that where a lot of pieces that we're seeing moving around here that is ultimately going to lead to fulfillment of biblical prophecy. So next here, this is some information. Now we've known that the grid, the U.S. grid, has been vulnerable for a long time now, but this is a new kind of simulation, at least that we're hearing about, that they're saying, in a nutshell, the grid is defenseless against, because they weren't. It's not prepared to handle a situation like that. So this says here, the drone attack simulation exposed a grid vulnerability. Now, a lot of things are attached to the grid, the energy grid. So that includes your water, your electricity, so many things. And so if a part of it goes down, that's darkness. All right, that's your lights, that's your electricity, which is powered. Your lights are powered by that. All right, and so many other things that you use on a day-to-day basis. When you go to the gas station, You see the numbers on there that show you that there's 379 or 555 or that what how do you think the numbers are showing on the screen? Through it's being powered by some form of energy, right? When you squeeze the pump and there's something that is some lever that is being opened so that the actual gas can flow into your car, and that whole pump machine that's over there, that's still electrically controlled. So if there's no power, you're not using that. You're not buying no gas to go anywhere. Okay. Anyway, it says here, U.S. electric utilities need new tools and regulatory authorizations to protect power grids from drone attacks, experts and industry groups say. And I'm not going to read the whole entire thing, but in a nutshell, what they're warning about is Iran's ability to use unmanned aircraft systems, which they call here UAS, to attack the infrastructure, okay, critical infrastructure or the electric grid, because let me see if it's in here somewhere, but there was mention here that the capability of stopping something like that is not really up to par as it should be, which is a vulnerability, and a danger, especially now with how things are going. Let's see. Yeah, so this quote here says, currently, utilities leverage detection capabilities to establish baseline traffic near critical assets, but are limited to engaging with drones only after they are safely on the ground, which is often too late. Them drones, they don't. Here's the thing, right? When you're building something like that, like a grid, and you have different transformers and different stationed at different locations to continue to, help the actual power flow through to different neighborhoods. It doesn't take much to destroy. Okay, it doesn't take much to destroy it, but it takes a lot to build it back and to repair those damages. Okay. So that's something that you have to remember. All they got to do is, they set up a few unmanned, right? Unmanned aircraft systems, and they can literally just be kamikaze or like suicide drones. They just go close enough to a certain area and then boom, they just blow up. That's all they have to do. I mean, you can be intricate about it, but all you really got to do is they just go there and then boom, find different parts. Okay, this part looks important. Boom. This part looks important. Boom. That part looks important. Boom. And the rolling effects, right? The damage that can cause is huge. It's massive. And they didn't have to do much. So that's a very dangerous thing, and that's a potential for major darkness. Okay, now when you go into the book of Revelation, I have it here, in Revelation 16, there are these plagues, right, that the angels poured out, at the time of destruction, which a lot of them mirror the plagues of ancient Egypt, as the Lord said in 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter. And one of those plagues was what? Darkness. Okay, here in Revelation chapter 16, verse 10, it says, and the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed with their tongues for pain, and blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. Now, in modern times, the Lord does not have to, bring like a thick darkness out of what would seem like nowhere, like he did in ancient Egypt. He can just use modern means, modern cases, like how you have artificial or man-made so-called famines. It's still a famine. The Lord can just say, "Oh, I'm just have Esau do this, that, and that," and you'll still feel the effects of it. Okay, so those plagues are surely coming, and before this place goes down, in the process of it going down, you're gonna see what it's like to understand the saying, "All hell breaking loose." Lastly, we have here Goldman sees risk of food prices amid fertilizer disruption. So now you have the we have to watch and see, what ends up happening here. But you have this potential for unsuccessful peace talks, which once again might the U.S. might come with unreasonable demands. They might come and they might say, look, Iran is being unreasonable with their demands, and we're not going to adhere to that. All they need to do is just do a repeat of what they did before, and just pretend like they really were considering, trying to have some peace. It takes time to broker peace. It takes time to select, okay, a location to go and meet to have these talks, right? Okay, you prefer to speak to JD Vance. Okay, well, he's gonna need to travel to Pakistan to meet you. That's all taking time. And what are they doing? What are they doing during that time? They're deploying their troops. They're putting things into position. Okay, so they're showing you that, look, all we gotta do is just get a little bit more time. And once we get there, look, if you don't want to play ball, we gonna send in them. And Iran said, look, we got one message for your troops: come closer. Come closer. You'll find out what we've been preparing for all these years. And then here you have you have the vulnerabilities in your grid, which once again is only really a matter of time. And as you're seeing here, food will be affected. That's in Second Esdras, I believe, either the sixth chapter. I think it's in the sixth chapter, right? That many that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and those that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. And famine is a very, very, very brutal way to go out. Okay, so let's read on here. It says the converse, and not to mention the elephant in the room, which is major energy crisis, which a lot of other countries are feeling that, and if it continues this way, you already know what comes next, which is those rations. That's when a lot more civilians and citizens are actually going to be feeling that more. So a lot of moving pieces are going on here, and before you know it, you're going to see that MOTB, right, Revelation 13, it's going to rear its head from somewhere, and we're going to be watching. And just like we're speaking about prophecy now, you're going to be seeing it in real time. So it says here, the conversation grows louder by the day as disruption at the Hormuz choke point hits the global nitrogen fertilizer market, and in turn is set to impact upcoming corn and grain harvests in some key growing regions. Jumping down to the third paragraph, the Strait of Hormuz is a critical route in the global nitrogen fertilizer market, which accounts for 60% of global fertilizer use and is especially important for crops like corn and other grains. And people don't ever, you have some people that don't even know what the word fertilizer means, right? And because they don't ever think about these things. So some of them will hear it, and, oh, yeah, okay, fertilizer, yeah, whatever that is. Well, why does that matter? And not realize, but damn, food prices are going up. And how is that happening? Because they don't understand the link. Jumping down again, given fertilizer accounts for approximately 20% of grain costs, the largest potential boost to grain prices is more likely to come from reduced grain supply. Fertilizer disruptions may reduce grain production, both through yield losses from delayed or suboptimal nitrogen application and potential acreage shifts toward less fertilizer intensive crops. And what they want to give you is the bugs and the lab grown food. That's what they want to give you. So they're trying to take you fully into that that transhumanist artificial world and make you a part of that system. They want to integrate you into it. And that's the times that we're living in, and those are the things that we're seeing here. But we know that it's not going to be successful because that's not the plan of the Heavenly Father, right? They're only going to get so far. One last thing I wanted to mention, which is pretty interesting, is they also raised, I think they said effective in April, I forgot what date, the age of enlistment is for like the army and so on, is going to be raised up to 42 years old from, I think, 30 something. Let's look up here. U.S. age of enlistment to be raised April 2026. Oops. Yeah, it says, yes, the U.S. Army has officially updated its regulations to raise the maximum enlistment age to 42 years old, effective April 20th, 2026. First question that should come to your mind is, why the urgency? No, you're discussing peace talks. I mean, you're discussing peace talks that should fix everything within the next couple of days. So why would an April 20th effective date matter? And why increase? Because what happens when you increase the age is not your sample size, but those that you can get access to and pull in here are now it's greater. You've opened up a whole new section, okay, from what 34 to 35 to now 42. That's a whole lot of people. Okay, so what is that telling you? It's telling you that they're in preparation because they know they're going to need more people to enlist. And what's going to happen is a lot of people are not going to want to enlist. And so they're going to institute and implement a draft. And men and women will be sent. So just wanted to mention that once again, listen to what they say, but look at what they do, because that reveals their thoughts. Anyway, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. And until next time, Shalom.